ask Pastor Brad Penn, First Baptist Church of Durham, to lead us in invocation this morning. So Brad.
Ladies. Father, we come to you today and ask that you accept our words of thanksgiving for your care and watchful eye over us. Represented in this room, no doubt, are all kinds of needs within our personal lives and people that we know and care about. We thank you, Lord, that you're invested in those and that you are involved in helping us and guiding us in the way that we should go. We are particularly thankful this morning, Lord, in this kind of meeting for the wisdom that you can give to us, that you can shape our thinking toward making decisions that are pleasing to you and good for the community and for our life here, all things that give glory to you. So, Lord, we pray today in the name of your Son, Jesus, that you would guide us, that you would help our conversations be enlightening, educational, and helpful to one another. May there be a spirit of cooperation that's blessed by you. May your Holy Spirit guide us in all things. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start out with administrative business.
Okay. I have the minutes of January 28th and also January 31st.
Okay, have time to review those minutes. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the January 28th minutes.
Second.
Moved and second by Diane. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
January 31st minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the 31st minutes as written.
Okay, motion by Diane, I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we do have some change orders, and Sharon had some more that came in after your report, so she's got additional ones in here. So there are kind of two stacks in there. We have a vacancy in the Grant Township clerk position, and there was someone that was written in at the election, and they declined the position. The person who has been serving is willing to serve again, and the board is asking for them to be reappointed. And so, so the person's name and the office are there on the email.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion and make a motion
To
to
appoint.
appoint Tim Malkovich as the clerk of Grant Township.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, really, I didn't have a whole lot this morning. For administrative, that's pretty much all I have, so
Is Rebecca Wingfield available?
I can go see.
Well, that's noisy, whatever's going on. It is. It's noisy, whatever's going on out there.
Not here. I'm keeping a quiet demeanor.
I didn't hear anything on the way in. It must have just started when
Maybe. It had the sound of something heavy falling down the stairs.
Morning, Rebecca.
I'm the Register of Deeds, and this is my quarterly report, which will maybe take 3 minutes. I brought the new fee schedule for you. Fees did not change this year. They're the same per document as they were last time.
Okay.
The biggest difference, as we have talked about before, is that the mortgage registration fee is no longer in existence. So for the month of January, if we had been collecting that fee, it would have been $1,448.26. In my office, you can't correlate that from month to month because there's no predictability in my office. So that's just kind of the basis of where we were this month. Last year, at the end of the year, I replaced my public computer, which was on the east wall. My printer was a 2005 version. My computer was so old that it was no longer going to be supported by Microsoft. So I have replaced that one. Then within the next 2 years, I would plan to replace both of the other public computers. That all comes out of the tech fund. We are continuing to work with micrographics. They are taking the microfilm, putting them in an archivable form so that we will have a permanent record. And Robin has been going through all of the old discs to make sure that every document is accurate, so we actually have a solid base. Last time I was here, I brought up the question of needing a off-campus storage site. Has anything happened on that?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion just because of the different offices that need that. Something that we need to address soon, because now we've got the documents out of the Boron building, and we have some other departments that are needing something, so it's still on the table,
Okay,
Rebecca.
good. And I am continuing to take from the microfilm, scanning the documents, putting them into the computer. So we're back to 1995 on documents in the computer, which makes it a lot easier for people coming in. They can just view it on the computer. I'm still using my copier, which is a 2007 version, and hoping that it will continue to live along for a couple more years.
their maintenance contract on it?
It's so old it didn't have one.
Oh.
And mine is a very simple version. It doesn't do tricks, it doesn't dance, it doesn't sing.
Okay.
It makes copies and sends
Okay.
fax, which is pretty much what I need. So that's all I have. Do you have?
Do you have a comment?
We have, at our office, Document Solutions 360, I think, and they provide us with a printer, give us so many prints per month, and they maintain the printer and the copier, and they fix all the broken parts. I mean, if you're gonna look into something, they're a local, they're in this area, because when we call them, they're here within an hour. So if you ever had to look into that. it's a
And
pretty
this
good-
is one of those, if it ain't broke, I ain't gonna fix it.
Oh,
So as
yeah.
long as it keeps working, I'll keep
I
struggling.
I understand that, Terry.
So thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Anything else?
You said that the public computer you replaced came out of the tech fund,
Yes, sir.
and so will you have room in that, will there be room in that tech fund to do some upgrades over the next year or so?
What kind of upgrades are you talking
Well,
about?
you're talking about, you may need to replace a
Right,
printer.
yes,
Probably gonna
there
have
is-
to replace another computer or two.
Yeah, there are sufficient funds in that.
Yeah, because I'd hate for you to get to the point where, oop, we don't have a printer.
No, I watch it pretty closely. So there's quite a bit in there for those kinds of things.
Okay, okay. We just don't want you to feel like that you cannot replace something that is inadequate anymore.
Right. Well, for what we do, this is adequate. I'm just astonished that it continues to work after this long time.
Sometimes the ones without all the bells and whistles last the longest.
Exactly. In fact, there might be several other offices that come borrow my copy machine when theirs is down.
Oh, okay.
Good luck trying to replace it when you need to get something that doesn't have any bells.
Yeah. I may have to go to the thrift store.
Yeah, it's hard to find things that don't have all the bells and whistles anymore, I understand that. But when you're putting standardized documents all the time, you just don't need that stuff.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Is Brad gonna be here today? It just depends on how long the meeting goes. He normally can't be here before 10, and so, if the meeting goes beyond 10, you're just gonna kind of check in and see if he's needed, but probably not.
Well, we do have a little time before the next agenda item. I guess we could go, if we have a citizen's concern, anything like that, we could go ahead and open that up. We have 15 minutes. Anyone from the public have anything they want to bring up? All quiet. Lloyd?
We consider, according to the state, a 5-person commissioner right now.
No.
I got 2 that have to be elected, but don't the state say it's 5 commissioners?
No, they do not. Brett, the county counselor, told me this morning he has confirmation, and it's because the way that we worded our resolution when we made that change, he has confirmation from multiple sources. I called him this morning to make sure, because we only have 2 commissioners here today.
That's what I was questioning.
Yes, but he said there is no quorum issue, so.
Anybody else? Okay. Why don't we take a 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene for the 9:30 construction. Mr. Harshman? you wanna- over here?
Thank you for taking time to work us in.
Sure.
I want to introduce 2 gentlemen that came with me. My son, Sam. Sam's been in the business with me since 2004, so that'd be 15 years. Mr. Rockers is our geologist and quality control person, among many other things. And he has 49 years in the business. Started out of high school with KDOT, had 18 years with KDOT, and then went into the private industry. So, I know you've been having issues with your roads, and I know there's different concerns. I wanted to come in and listen to those concerns and find out how we might be able to help, what your thoughts are to make it better.
You wanna start, Diane?
I can, doesn't matter. My concerns are, first off, all the calls that I get, like you had said yourself, we have issues with our roads. And we have issues to our roads to the point of, we're in a crisis state, quite frankly. We have people who now are paying their taxes under protest. We have people threatening all kinds of things. People are fed up to here because they can't get out of their road. I mean, it's just got to this point. I'm not saying it's any one thing. I'm certainly not saying it's any one person.
Yes.
And I want to make it very clear, none of this is personal, okay? I don't know
Sure.
any of you, I'm strictly business, okay?
Yes.
And that's the beauty of not being born and raised in Marion County, because I don't have that
Mm-hmm.
buddy friendship, okay? I'm just looking at facts, numbers, and figures, and stuff that I see and hear. So when all these issues started to culminate, shall we say, because and I understand every county's got problems on their dirt roads and their gravel roads. And I will also start off by saying that I lived up in Dickinson County, which is the township unit, and I lived in one of the poorest townships on that road. And I bitched and moaned about my rock roads from day one. It was horrible, okay? But now I feel bad, because my bad rock road up there was not a bad rock road like what we have here. At least ways, when our roads were bad, a lot of it was my own fault. I had a little Toyota Corolla, not four-wheel drive, which is a low little car.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked at Fort Riley, so gas economy, it was perfect. Rock roads, it stank, okay? I just couldn't. But the bad part is that my point I'm trying to make is, even when we had lots of, and everybody says the weather. The weather. We had a lot of extra rain this year, a lot of extra moisture. We had a lot of heat. I don't even buy that anymore, because this is Kansas. So we need to know our type of weather that we have, and I think we do. We all know to expect the worst in a day's change. But the point that I was trying to make there was, even when our roads were bad, there was a base. Yeah, I mean, you sank down so far and that was it. To me, in my little car, it was the worst, driving to Fort Riley back and forth. But here, and I will point out this picture right here on this, and this was a really good, and I know you've probably seen the paper, this was a really good rock road. And there's no base. I mean, this is horrible. So I have to question, year after year after year, putting rock on our roads, why there is not some form of a base already established, so that when we hit these weather trends, whether it's extreme heat for extended periods of time, or a lot of moisture, even though the roads can get bad, they don't get destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So, in my research, and I want to tell you, I spent a lot of time researching this, so that makes me not a happy camper, because researching rock is one of the boringest subjects I've ever had to research. But in so doing, and of course you know we had Norm Bowers come down, and he did the road tour. Have you read that report? Have you had the opportunity? You've seen it. Okay, so then of course you realize that he does say that the ledge that Harsherman is using is one of the softest rocks mined in Kansas. Okay, and it goes on to tell different things like that. And that's concerning to me, because, and that's what I hear. That's what I hear from all my constituents, most of Mr. Becker's constituents, and even this morning I'm going down and getting calls from Peabody about the rock just disappears. And I realize that there's a lot of things that go into that mix. I realize that our blademen in the hot, warm weather is blading the roads probably too often, which breaks it up, and that's why we have so much dust. I understand there's a lot of factors that go into it. But I also, in studying, I also got quite a few test results from the different quarries and stuff, from your quarry, from Ham. There's gradation reports here that actually Norm got on the gradations and things like that. And I was also looking at some of the reports on the PI, the plasticity index. And I noticed that a lot of the quarries like yours doesn't actually do a test on that, which is one of the things that I have an issue with, because we're just not, we don't have the cohesiveness in the rock by not having an accurate, by the state. Now I'm going all by KDOT
Mm-hmm.
standards, okay,
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm basing this on. So when you go into these type of tests, your rock does not meet, some of your rock, I'm sorry, does not meet KDOT testing or KDOT standards. And then when I hear people say how the rock just disappears, and I can see that it does. I can see that it does. And I don't know, and I know you have several different ledges and stuff that you can use from, I think if I'm not mistaken, you have the Stevens, Robinson, and several others also. So you have different areas that you can get your rock from, and I understand that they probably have different testings.
Those are the different landowners that we query on, and
Yeah.
it's fairly consistent.
Okay, yeah, so I understand that you can do that. The one that really stands out to me is the FT sound saw test. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The FT.
Freezing tall
Freezing
sound is
tall.
best.
Yes, and by KDOT standards, you need to have at least an 85 or greater. And I noticed on your test results, on your 1.25 inches, you are 0.71, and on your 1.5, you're actually 0.81. You do have the 1.5 inches, which is a 0.86, which actually meets their standards, but just by a smidge. So and then of course the wear remarks, you are under the 50, which is good. But those are your freeze taps. So what I see happening on the roads, if I'm not misreading and not misunderstanding this, if the rock is so soft, and I didn't know that rock actually freezes, and a piece of rock freezes and thaws, and that softness of that rock is more porous, and therefore it absorbs a lot of moisture. And in so doing, then when it thaws, it kind of crumbles. And so as I look at the rock that we have, even where we have high concentration of rock, like up with the wind turbine, a lot of the rock and stuff that they have up there, like on their lay yard and things like that, when that gets wet, it's a clay kind of mush type thing too, because the rock is degrading just by the freeze-thaw process, I assume. You might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I have learned. I also want to tell you that I'm not going just solely by what Norm Bowers is saying. I'm using that. That's what kind of really sparked the damning report that we got from him in all aspects, not just the rock. But I did talk to 2 other engineers who are retired in this county, and yeah, they all pretty much sing the same song. So that's my beef, is the quality of the rock that we're buying. Mm-hmm. I do realize that Jesse is buying from Waverly, which he says is a better rock. That is a rock that I don't have a test on. I don't know if you do or not.
We can get that for you.
Okay, so I don't have those results because I don't have it. But even when I talk about Waverly, and then when I push the pencil to what we have to spend to go get that, because that's 80 miles away, we're paying $23 a ton.
I don't think so.
Well, according to Jesse's own document is what it says.
Maybe that's after you get it spread on your road, but
well,
do you know our rates?
Okay, so right here, Jesse has provided, this is his long-term road plan, and he is saying that $23.39 is what, oh no, I'm sorry, I have the rock report where he purchased it from the county. I have that where he actually purchased the rock. And he paid $15.89, I think, a ton. But then we add haul of $7.50.
No, it's not $15.80 out of Waverly. It's probably around $8.
7 or 8 something. The
per
total
ton.
from Waverly to here, freight and rock, I think last year was $15.89, and then this year you're paying $15.39.
Okay, is
That's
Waverly in Coffee County?
No, it's in Osage County.
It's in Osage?
Mhm.
Okay.
That might be,
I thought it said, because I
that
even
might be rock
Googled
from
it.
APAC.
No, this is from you.
Okay.
This is Harshman
He
Construction.
has gone over and looked at the rock that APAC has. I think he said that was a Hartford.
Yes.
Okay, that.
Yeah, I have their test results also, from APAC. And they compare theirs to your rock as well, but they're saying that they will add more screenings to their rock. Right here, they say that their KGE rock gradation will be similar to Harshman's gradation, except they will have more fines in it than what yours do.
Diane, we can make any gradation you want with our screening process. We can take screenings out, we can add screenings to it. If you know how many screenings you want, we can make it. And I want you to know, I can't defend the quality of the rock at Florence. I can change any gradation, but changing the quality is above my pay grade. You know, it's what it is. And I don't want to interrupt what you're saying.
No, go right ahead.
But there's a lot more going into having a good road than a lesser quality rock, and I would like to address that sometime.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. And like I said, I think at the onstart, I realize there's a lot that's going into it. So I'm not saying it's just the rock. I'm saying
Right.
that the rock is one portion of it. And with the quality of rocks from different quarries, we have the option of maybe making adjustments.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that your rock doesn't have a place, because it does. You know, I'm just saying that, what I am saying is, and I went back through our warrants, and I know that just for outright rock purchases, we purchased almost $500,000, and I say almost $500,000 of rock just from you. Now, having said that, I know that other quarries, and I'm going to say like Woodbine, Ham, and so on, has a harder rock. I know Ottawa has a harder rock. In fact, their rock may be a little too hard. That's what the people at Saline tell me, because Saline County also buys from Woodbine, but they also buy from Ottawa. So does Dickinson County, and so does Gary County. I've talked to all these different people. So I guess what I'm saying is recognizing the different qualities of rock from the different locations and the different ledges and all that stuff and the mix. And I was up at Woodbine. I was never down at your quarry, but I seen piles of rock of everything you want, sizes, you name it.
At Woodbine?
At Woodbine, yes.
Sure.
And I know they have also a place at Harrington, which I've never been to either. But I'm just trying to get to the source, or at least correct one piece of our problem right now with our road. And I think our base and our rock is a good place to start.
Sure.
And so I'll let you say what you need to say now. I probably rambled on long enough.
You were stating a delivered price from Waverly to your quarry, correct?
Correct. Not
Okay.
including your
And
guys' freight.
do you stockpile that, or you just bring it in by request, or
We
order?
bring it in by request, specifically for Marion County. Everything we're bringing in is for you
I'm
guys.
just, I'm wondering, we've got one price, and then, but you're telling us it's quite a bit less than that. So, I'm just trying to figure out where we're at, which Jesse's not here, but.
I don't know
And
if
you can supply that quality of rock in unlimited quantity, basically?
Yeah, we can bring in as much as you guys want.
Providing that we have, to get that kind of freight rate, we need a backhaul.
Right.
And a great time to be bringing rock here is when sand is moving from Hutchinson to Kansas City. And on a backhaul, they can stop at our quarry, pick up rock, and bring it back. We can get you the most competitive price at that time.
Speaking of price, now I asked you something else just came
Yes.
to mind. This just came to mind. And I'm just wondering why, and this is a year or so ago, but I noticed that farmers who buy, I don't know what, let's just say 10 truckloads of rock from you, your KGE rock,
Yes.
they pay the same price as what you're charging the county who buys thousands and thousands. Do you not have like a quantity discount, or do you not do something to people like that? I mean, I'm just wondering why this farmer who bought a couple truckloads pays the same price the county does. I mean, is that just not a business technique that you would be interested in?
Diane, that's a good question, and this is how I feel about it. That farmer who buys 10 loads is buying the county rock as well with his taxes. And we try and keep our price competitive for everyone. I think if you check Our price is significantly less than our competition at Woodbine. I think we're significantly less than our competitions east of us. And I farm too, and I pay taxes. And I would like to treat the farmers the way I would like to be treated. The farmers are paying for the county rock as well, and I think they deserve a good price.
Okay, so you answered my question, why do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, and I 100% agree on giving the farmers every benefit of the doubt. I'm talking a business decision as far as volume purchasing. Because I think, you know, you go to Napa, you go to any place, and they buy oil, and they buy it by the train load, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They can sell it, you go to Walmart, and they buy it by the mega train load.
But you know,
Same oil.
We don't have a 50% profit margin like a lot of businesses do. Our margins are very thin. We have to sell millions of tons a year.
Mm-hmm.
Our business is very capital intensive. The equipment we buy is expensive, the upkeep on it is expensive, and we watch our margins very close. We try and have a competitive price for everyone, and that includes the farmers that need it as much as anyone. So that's where we're coming from.
Okay, I will respect that.
I could increase the price on the farmers, but I can't decrease your price.
Okay.
And I don't think that's fair to my friends and neighbors and the economic engine of our community.
Okay.
I think the main concern here is not only price, but, you know, we getting a product that we can put on our road and not get a rain event, and 3 weeks later, you can't tell where the rock went. I just talked to a individual this morning that they had their road, had some rock put on their road right before this event started, and now he says that they can't tell where that rock went. Now I don't see how we can actually blame you, but if we're using too soft a product, we certainly want to correct that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not being cost effective by spending less on a product that does not last than spending more on a product that, well, is still going to be there when the blade man can finally get out. We can keep him from pushing it in the ditch.
Yes.
So, I mean, what you're telling me is a little bit different information than what we've had in the past about the hard rock and what it's going to cost us and your ability to supply it to us. So, I do appreciate that information.
And I will also add to the quality of the rock. We have to also consider the trucking. So when we take, like you're in the southern part of the county, the trucking that we pay to get it up to, let's just say, Mary, in the middle of the county or Durham or wherever, it would be more cost effective to us to actually buy it from the north. And
Sure.
I mentioned that before, and that we should maybe have the northern quarries haul the rock in to the middle of the county and from the southern, which, you know, that haul cost adds up big time.
Yes.
And so that way, and also, I think it alleviates the appearance of favoritism,
Sure.
you know, by sharing the rock. And again, I do go back into the quality of the rock. So, but anyway, I know you have some things you want to say.
One more question. You were talking about, you bring this back basically from backhauls. On a backhaul, say the county, we needed a bunch of that kind of rock. Can that be coordinated to where it could be stockpiled for us at our location rather than having it brought to your quarry there, and then we got to run our trucks out there where, you know, there might be a couple of strategic points in this county, and these guys coming through could more centrally locate that rock for us.
We can work on that with our backhaulers. If we have your locations, I think they would be happy to. It might cost just a little bit more, but it would be more cost effective
Well,
than
yeah,
driving
it's gonna
to
cost
Florence.
us to go down there and
You're right.
strategically, we can get rock on a road a lot quicker if we've got it located in 3 or 4 locations in the county than running the whole fleet down there.
You can spend it on rock instead of trucks, labor, and transportation.
Yeah. So that's something that you would be willing to coordinate.
Yes, sir. That's why we came today. We want to coordinate with you and work together and try and resolve your issues.
And so, having said that, I would really be interested to see updated gradation, freeze-thaw test, plasticity index tests on your rock wherever it is you buy it. I'm going to do the same thing to the others. I mean, I have it from the other quarries as well, but I would like updated ones.
Sure. Diane, the reason we don't normally run PI test, the plastic index, is that Kansas limestone, you're going to have between 1 and 8%, and that's the KDOT spec. And this year in a
That's right.
really dirty ledge, it ain't going to be more than 8. And if we're in a dirty ledge, we scalp the rock. We run it through a process where it takes the dirt out even before it goes into the primary crusher. So we control our PI between 1 and 8. We can give you numerous test results that shows that.
And do you do your sifting on wet or dry?
Dry.
Dry.
All gradations are done on a dry basis, oven-dry basis.
But I would
Otherwise,
think
the
of-
gradation wouldn't make any sense because you wouldn't know what the moisture was in the rock, so you couldn't determine a gradation. And also, just, I haven't had a chance to put it in here, but the quality information that you're looking at, if you want to make for sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges, the KDOT qualities from Woodbine are done on concrete rock and asphalt rock at the end of the process, not necessarily what's on their road rock itself, where the qualities, some of those that you've looked at with ours are done on the rock itself.
And see, I contacted KDOT and I spoke to a KDOT person there, and what
Which
you're
one?
saying is a little bit different than what he had said to me. I can give you his name that I spoke
Was
to.
it Rod
He is
Motney,
there.
the engineer of tests?
I'm sorry?
Was it Rodney Motney, the
No,
engineer of tests?
it was not Rodney. Let me find it here for you. I'll tell you exactly who it was. Like I told you, this is one of the worst studies I ever had to do. And it's so, you know, there's so much involved. You know, you almost have to be a person involved in that type of stuff. I'll find it here for you, I'm sorry. So you can go ahead and keep talking while I'm looking, and then I'll get you the man's name, who I
Well,
spoke to.
I think I started crushing rock at 23 years of age. I've been in the business for over 40 years. And like I said, Frank has been in the industry 49. And we have 15 different rock quarry locations in 11 different counties. And most of those are east of here where the quality of rock is better. And so we have the opportunity to work with many commissioners, many road bosses, many engineers, and get to observe many roads over a large area. And the problem that you're having with your roads here is not isolated to your county. What we see is the counties that do the best job of putting a crown in their roads and doing away with the curbs on the side, their roads are holding up. And the counties that don't take that effort to do that, this type of winter, they're having trouble. I don't know if you remember, but back in 1993, we had a winter like this, only worse. We had more snow, more freezing and thawing, and the roads at that time, all over our footprint, were worse than they are now. But Diane, what happens when it snows? I mean, if you think this process all the way through, that's if you don't have a good crown on your road, and if you don't blade it to get the snow off, what happens? That snow will melt.
And it goes right down.
Right down the
Well,
middle.
but it's a process. It just keeps soaking in. And then at night, it freezes. And you talked about the freezing, breaking the rock apart, the Florence rock. That's not necessarily true. It is a porous rock, but it lets the water in, it lets the water out. Part of that Florence rock is good for cement because it is porous, it lets the water in, it lets the water out. Highway 50 between Florence and Peabody was built out of the Florence rock.
And I
Okay.
understand that, I said,
Okay,
yeah.
but what happens, it freezes at night and the moisture expands and it separates that rock.
Mhm.
And then it thaws during the day and that water penetrates and it penetrates a little bit more and it freezes at night and it opens up some more. And it thaws during the day and if that water's still sitting there, if that snow is still melting, this process goes over and over, day after day and night after day and night. And that moisture gets down into your base.
Mhm.
And then your road is on life support.
Mhm.
You can't keep up with it at that point.
And that's not true to just rock roads, that's also true to our paved roads, where we're
That's
starting to
true.
get potholes and all that other stuff, and I mean, that's another rash
Yeah.
of the same situation, yeah.
Now, our counties that have a good crown and don't have the curb effect,
Mhm.
they're getting along really well.
Mhm.
But even where we have the hard rock, if that road is not maintained well, this same freeze-thaw process takes place, and they have issues. So I can't defend the quality of the rock. You would be better off with a higher quality. However, that is not the major issue in a winter like this. We haven't had a winter like this for a while.
No.
And your roads have not been 1 or 2 years getting in this condition. The curb effect and the flatness,
I know.
maybe it's decades of not quite doing it right.
Mhm.
And you get a winter like this, it's the perfect storm. And the roads go to pot.
And you're exactly right, and that's one of the reasons, or one of the main reasons why as a commission, we decided to seek an engineer. We're
Yes.
seeking to hire an engineer because we need to have more knowledge at the
Mhm.
top.
Mhm.
And so, because we recognize exactly what you're saying to be the truth,
Yeah.
the way the roads are being not maintained properly is a big portion of why we have this problem. I understand that, that's why I said this is one piece.
I'm not an engineer, and I don't claim to have all the answers, but I have 40 years of working with commissioners, road engineers, seeing many miles of county roads and coming up with a solution. And there's certain types and gradations of rock to use for certain applications, and some will not work.
And so I would like to ask you then, as we go forward, you said you'd work with us and stuff, and you have different qualities of rock.
Yes.
And I realize, and I never was a person to believe that cheap is always the answer, because it usually comes back to bite you. And I think in this case right here, buying cheap rock, and I know, I heard Jesse's theory on that. I totally disagree with it, because the cheap rock is costing us a fortune.
Mhm.
And so,
But don't blame it all on the rock. If
No, I'm
even with this
saying-
softer rock, Diane, if your roads
I
were
understand that.
crowned,
I
but they're
got it.
not, so
But
this
we-
is the situation
that's-
we're in.
I understand that, but today we're talking rock. You're
Yes.
the rock man, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so today we're talking rock. So I'm saying here, my opinion is, I don't know what the rest of the commission is gonna be, but I am gonna sing the song that we need to get a better quality rock.
Okay.
And if you can provide a better quality rock, yay, okay, I'm happy with that, I'll be happy to work with you. I'm happy to work with anybody, because we
Yes.
have to fix this one piece at a time, and starting with better quality rock, and then of course hiring an engineer, getting different road techniques, the crownings, the ditches, and all that other stuff. I'm hoping that we're gonna start digging ourselves, and it's gonna take a long time.
It is.
We dug ourselves a heck of a hole.
Mhm.
And so it's not an overnight fix, I got that. But if we make these changes, and I know it's gonna cost the county more money, but it's actually gonna save us money in the long run, is my theory, and what I think, by buying a little better quality rock. Personally, I don't want this cheap rock, and I say cheap, what is it, KGE, I don't mean to say cheap rock, but I think that's
Lesser quality.
lesser quality rock, and all the quarries have it. Yes, I personally don't think we need to be spending any more money on that, would be my thought.
Okay.
Yeah. And if we are willing to do the road tests and get the rock of a better quality and stuff like that, but I still think we need to divide the county kind of in half, give or take, and to save us on haul fees, from the north to the south. I think that also would help us to go a few more miles, and if we can save a little bit on haul, and then put that extra savings into the quality of the rock, I think in the long haul, it'll help.
If you're looking at quality, I would like to remind you of what Frank shared about the possibility of The quality reports you're looking at Woodbine might be from their concrete stone. I would suggest that you actually take a sample of what you're getting from them,
And I'm gonna-
send it to KDOT.
I'm gonna do that. I already have arrangements to go to a couple and get the samples, Burkamp as well. That, I've never had a test from Burkamp other than what Norm just did on the gradation, but I don't know what that much, but I have arrangements to go, and some of the retirees are gonna help me with this, to take some samples from some of these different quarries in different areas and stuff like that, and actually get up-to-date testing and stuff, so.
It's not my policy to badmouth a competitor, but I do know when they built the wind farm here in Marion County, Burkamp started out with the job, and they took it from him because it was lesser quality than Florence. Florence did meet their requirements.
And I don't think you're bad-mouthing anybody, you're just simply stating a fact.
That's my
Because I know
intention.
that, yeah.
Okay.
But when I say I'm gonna test, I just wanna be fair to everybody.
Sure.
And then I'll, look at the results of the test. And I don't care who it is. I'm just looking at the results of the test.
I have to say you've done an excellent job in your research.
Oh,
You're spot on.
well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the end result is, we're looking for a certain type of quality. We're looking for economic of scale, and a company that's willing to work with us, just like I was talking about. If we can coordinate to where maybe we can do some stockpiling and spread it across the county to where we get easy access for our crews. Those kind of things will go a long way to helping us as for this one part.
Absolutely. Can you get me those locations that you would like to have rock delivered at?
Well,
prices for?
Jesse would probably have a better
Sure.
idea. We have several locations around the county where in the past that we've stockpiled,
Yes.
from north to south.
Mhm.
And, of course, then at that point, we wouldn't want to know how much extra it's going to cost us to get that done from your backhaulers or however you negotiate with them. And, then the negotiation would be in your court.
Well, and we do not mark that transportation up one penny. What we add to our rock is the exact price that we're paying that trucker. We'll get it here as competitively as we can.
At the meeting, I'd suggest you guys go down here on 3rd Street to 150th Road, turn east. The county's been down there about 2 months, and they rebuilt that dirt road down there. It goes all the way from 3rd Street to 77, all the way across the bottom. They pulled out of there and left it flat. They dumped rock. Now the rock's over here, clear over the shoulder. It don't make any difference you're hauling gold on that road. If a wind rode over the shoulder, they left absolutely nothing up there on top of the mud road. It's all the wind road over the side. Go down there and look at it and see what you people are doing.
And Carl, you're
That's part of
right,
it.
yeah.
That's part of the equation, we know that.
Well, it's a big part. There's no crown. They left low in the middle. They had scrapers down there doing it. I've been in this business 40 years running equipment. I've never seen such crap. It's just terrible.
You're right. Yeah, I can't dispute it. I cannot
Before you
dispute
get
it.
good rock,
Mhm.
any rock, you gotta crown the road up.
I know.
Gee.
Frank, I'm sorry, the man's name is Richard Brzezinski?
Berezinski,
Yes,
he is the Assistant Bureau Chief for
Yes.
Materials and Research.
yes, that's what it says, yes. I just wanted to tell you that's the person I spoke to and worked with, so.
Well, we appreciate
Like I
your
said,
time,
those qualities
cooperation,
are
thank you for
different.
coming in.
You're welcome. I would like to make one more statement.
But
When you talk about putting, I'm just gonna use this as a hypothetical number, 500 ton of rock on 1 mile. Okay, 500 ton of rock, 24 feet wide on 1 mile is 1 inch thick. So, 1 inch isn't 500 ton just doesn't cut it. And even in the summer, when you put 1 inch on, you're putting that rock on top of a hard surface, and that tire will just grind that rock to dust. If somehow you could afford to put 3 or 4 inches on, you make a pad, and then your tire rides on top of that pad, and it doesn't just grind the rock to dust.
And having said that, that's also in Norm Bauer's report.
I
And
didn't- I
because,
didn't
and the
realize
reason
that.
he brought that up was because sadly, we are currently putting on 300 ton per mile. So he did say that on a 24-foot road that we should be putting 700 ton on. But since we're only putting on 300 now, he suggests that we at least bump it up to 5. I mean, he was trying to give us, guidance that we're putting too little on.
Okay.
So even what you're saying, you're simply reiterating what he said from a professional point of view. I respect that. You're right. But this is what we've been doing all this time, just a spattering of rock, and he's pointing out that we're not doing enough.
What you rock now, I would certainly recommend putting it down the center 8 feet, so whatever you put on is 3 times as thick versus spreading the clear out, and that will help with your crown.
And so
If
then,
you get rid of that moisture,
Mhm.
your trouble will be taken care of.
so then I would assume that you will also agree that once we put on that rock, then the road graders need to stay off of it for a while. We should pack
Not
it down.
necessarily.
We should pack it down somewhat, and then what would the point then be of putting it on thick and then scraping it off?
I'm not saying scrape it off, I'm saying as you have road traffic, you're gonna create ruts. And if you have those ruts in there and it snows or rains, you're gonna have water in those ruts. So keep working that crown until you get your base reestablished again.
You're only gonna have ruts though if it's wet and muddy underneath that you can push one
Well,
part
it's
down.
gonna compact down.
Mhm.
And you just have to look at the road and see what it needs. Every road's different, every road is a judgment call.
If the road's built with, has enough rock for the base and it's built right, then it doesn't need as much blading as it would if
Yeah,
it's
that's where I
not,
was
if it's
going.
flat
Yeah.
Mhm.
or there's water sitting on it. If there's water sitting on it, it's gonna be a problem. But it's gotta be built right. You gotta get to that point to where it can stay there for a while without blade working it.
I think that's why the commission came to the consensus that we have to have an engineer to get these roads engineered correctly to start with.
So I will say, I appreciate the conversation and you guys coming in.
You're
It's
welcome.
nice to meet you. I never met any of you people.
Mhm.
And I'm happy that you're willing to work with us, and I'll be looking forward to some results and stuff and working together with you.
You're our boss, okay?
Oh,
As our customer, you are our boss. And tell us what we can do to make it work, to make it better, what you want, and we're on it. So,
I appreciate that. And we have to do our homework right here first, because I don't even know, this is probably bad, but I don't even know that we have a standard as a county what kind of rock we need.
the county has a
That's-
base rock standard for secondary roads, and it's
State
85 on the
does.
soundness, the state does.
Yeah.
It's 85 on the soundness. But you
Oh,
can
and
do
the
better
freeze
than that.
test, it's a point in
Yeah.
file and freeze test, yeah, okay,
But you can do better than that if you bring rock in.
okay, okay.
I know we overran our time.
No, you're
Thank
fine,
you.
Thank
you're
you.
fine. We have all the
Appreciate the
time we need.
information.
Yeah, you're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you, it was nice meeting you all.
Great to meet both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Sam.
There's the heading specs for secondary county roads.
Galen.
I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bud.
Oh, yeah. I have a couple of questions here from engineers, builders of the transfer station shop office area. There's the
Thank you.
scheduling. For the building, they have it staked already. Staked this morning, I saw it, I was down there. They're gonna plan on starting tomorrow or Wednesday with the dirt work. And, we had our pre-con meeting last Wednesday. And the question arose about what kind of heat do we want to have in there. So I'm here to ask what kind of heat you want. The overhead heat is going to be the same price or less. We're not for sure how much less it would be, but it would not be any more. And that's putting in the gas line and everything, and a single unit for the office shop area on its own, and just the overhead tubes for the shop
The
area.
radiant heat.
Radiant heat,
Yeah.
yes. And,
So you're saying it'll be
So
about
what-
the same?
yeah, it would be the same if not less. There might be some cost savings, but for sure, it's not gonna be over. It would be the same price. So,
I think what we're talking about is the floor heat.
right, yeah, that's what
Whether
was
we wanna go
designed.
ahead with the floor heat or not.
Right,
And that was like an additional 3,000?
no, that was in the bid.
That was in the bid,
That was in
right,
the bid, yeah.
but the way I understood it, if we wanted to take it out, it would be a change order.
But this is gonna be the same money as the radiant floor heat or less. They're not for sure how much of the savings, you know. I'm not gonna say a number because I don't want, you know.
So it's not a sufficient saving by going to the overhead? It's gonna be the same or less?
Yes, yes.
So,
With both heat, with the floor and radiant.
No,
No,
just
just
the
the
radiant
radiant,
heat
yeah.
and then a separate heat for the office
Right,
bathroom area.
right.
You know, because it's gonna be air conditioned, the office and the bathrooms, so.
but aren't you saying that even if we go with the overhead heat or the radiant, it's gonna be about the same cost as the floor heat?
Right,
That's what you're saying?
right,
Okay.
right,
But the way I understand it, if we took the floor heat out,
yeah.
then we would be saving the cost of that, putting in the floor heat.
Well,
Am I wrong?
no, you'll still spend that money on the overhead radiant heat, the tubes,
Right,
and what goes into the office bathroom area.
And the line and stuff
Yeah,
for the gas?
and the line for the gas line.
So it's a wash, either
So
which
it's,
way you go?
so it's a wash, you know, it's just, you guys need to decide which way you wanna go.
well, I think my main concern is the overrun on, from what the engineer's estimate was.
Right.
And, you know, I understand that's just an engineer's estimate. But, you know, we have a certain amount of dollars to work with. And going forward in this project, my contention is we're gonna have to look for some areas we can save some money.
Right,
And this is just a start. So,
What's the
Yeah.
maintenance like on both of those kind of systems?
the maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
well, my
Well-
concern about the floor heat, in talking with an individual that has that, is that if you get a leak in that, because there's water circulating through there. He said his big concern is, and from what he's found out is, you think you've got a leak over here because water came up. That's not where the leak is. It's somewhere down the system, and you're looking at a major demolition to get that fixed.
yeah,
And so I think that's more of a concern to me is the ongoing maintenance of that floor system and the actual benefit. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great when there's somebody working on that concrete to not, you know, but we're talking about 3 months out of the year where that's a possibility. And I'm just concerned that over the long term, because this is a long-term project, that we could have that issue come up. And wow, what if we had to demo all that concrete to find out? what-
yeah. I
What's
mean,
the
either way it's
safety
gonna be,
issue?
good.
I mean, the safety issue, the floor being frozen in the winter time.
Actually,
Who's on this floor, the public or the?
no.
No, just
no,
employees.
This is the shop area.
Okay.
This is for the shop office area that's being built. So,
How thick did we say the floor was gonna be in concrete, do you
man,
remember?
I can't remember what they said, whether it's 9 inches, 6.
I mean, it's a lot of concrete.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it's fine with us. You know.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't do any research on either one of
Yeah.
those, I have no idea which one's
Yeah, I'm just,
better, and I know you're gonna find somebody that has it and don't like it, the next man will have it and like it, and back
Right.
and forth, and I don't,
yeah,
so I
I'm
don't
just,
know that I have an opinion.
my concern is,
Down the road.
down the road. Plus, it's, you know, if you look at it from a utility bill standpoint, it's gotta add something to the utilities.
Yeah.
Water and electricity.
Right. I mean,
So, you know,
But so does
I just
gas,
don't see
right?
it as being a cost-effective thing. we might love it for 10 years, and then all of a sudden we got a leak and we got to demo the whole floor,
We're talking about heat.
the floor heat.
Okay. Just trying to get so I can tell the engineers which way you guys wanna go on the heating system. Because if you go floor heat, they need to know so they can get the stuff ordered so they can get going, with that, or if you wanna change it to
Wasn't it on the bids?
the floor heat was, but that's the radiant heat, but you suggested something about a change order for it. The commission did.
And what was the price?
It's the same, including putting in the gas line or less, but I'm not at liberty to say what the or less is because I don't really know.
If you was gonna use the heat every day, probably be a good way to go with floor heat, but if we're not gonna use it every day, I don't intend to use it every day.
No.
I think you can save some money by just using it when you need it.
Right.
But I mean, in a wintertime situation, wouldn't you almost have to just leave it on?
And, yeah, with the floor heat, yes, yes. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. And you don't have to with the other, you've got radiant heaters, you've got overhead heaters, you can go right down the middle with them. So, that's my preference, to do it that way. I just,
My preference to leave the floor heat out. You have any thoughts, Diane?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know
Yeah.
anything knowledgeable enough to add to that, so I don't.
Either way, it's fine. I just need to know so I can tell the engineers so they can tell the contractor that there's gonna be a change order. You know, that's what this would be, it's a change order from the radiant floor
Right,
heat
right.
to the tube heat.
same cost.
Same cost. And that's including the gas line coming into the building from the main. That's everything. And they did say there might be some savings, but they weren't at liberty to say, you know, at that time. So, just so you know, there might be.
And like I said before you got here, Randy, being that
Well, I know.
our total, the estimates are coming in higher than what our engineers' estimates are, I think we need to be looking down the road at areas that, you know, we can save without causing a problem with the whole project as a whole.
Okay, so
Yeah.
You know,
you want a change order to go to the,
Yeah.
Jonah has some information.
What's that?
I think Jonah has some information.
You guys awarded the contract to Nelson Fowles, right?
Right.
And then it would be a change order, is what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
Because they've asked us to rebid the project for this radiant heat. So they haven't even selected their subs. So I don't know why it would need to be a change order.
oh, they haven't selected their section.
Well,
Okay.
maybe they have. It's
Well, I don't know. I was just told at the pre-com meeting that they needed to know so they could, if we're going floor heat, they need to order the insulation for the floor. If not, because it's started, construction started, and they're figuring on having the slab down in 3 weeks, so.
You know, when they were when the engineers were here the last time, that's been over a month ago,
Yeah.
whatever, we questioned that, and they said if we didn't want the floor heat, that would be fine, it would be a change order. So that's kind of where we left it.
I'm just wondering why they got awarded it and then they asked us to rebid it. Where normally you lock in all your subs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you just have them do the work.
Right.
Instead, I know that Punk and Elcon both
Right.
rebid it,
Right.
which is, it's really not fair.
Right, I don't know,
That'd be a question of the engineer.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the contractor,
yeah,
the general.
yeah, that's on him, so.
But I think you've heard the consensus of the commission when it comes to the
Yeah.
floor heat, so.
Okay, and then another thing that they wanted to know,
Could
when
you,
we
excuse
initially.
me, could you go ahead and take official action on
Okay.
that floor heat?
I'd make a motion that we move to go ahead and have a change order, if that's the way we have to do it with them, to go to the radiant heat.
And I'll second that. Motion by Randy to change out the change order on the floor heat. I second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, go ahead.
Okay, now, another thing they have is, when we initially started these plans, it was for overhead door. And then, the sectional overhead door, let me get it straight. Okay. Since we have 3 doors there, they saw where the tracks were gonna run into each other, so they went to the coil doors. Well, the contractor called me Friday and had been in contact with his door people. And it was also brought up by the heating and cooling people that these are non-insulated doors. And he found out that you can put up the sectional with high-rise tracks to get above the tubes. And it's going to be less than what the coil roll-up doors will be. And they are insulated, the sectional doors are. So, in a heated building, insulated sectional doors would probably be better than the coil roll-up door, like we have in the transfer station right now. Those are just the coil
And
doors.
the tracks would be up above the heat.
They would be up above.
And they don't see a problem with that.
And the overhead door people saw no problem, said they could work it, because they said the one that's gonna be on the, I believe it's on the east side, it would go up and then follow the roof line up, and the other two would go up higher and then go over. So they would be above the tubes, would not be a problem. Everything's gonna work just fine, and it's coming in as savings above the coil. So there's savings there. So,
How much does the door go above the tube heater?
he didn't say that, he said it was going up to the roof line,
Just
you know,
wondering
to the eave line.
the structural hanging of the tube heater and then the door coming into, that's my only concern, and that's for you guys.
Yeah, I understand that, but the contractor had said that it would work, so, and I can just go by what they say, what they tell me.
I'm just looking for,
So does
not
that,
another change
understand
order
your-
down
I
the
understand
road.
it.
so does that require another change order?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have this, going through. Things are gonna be change ordered because somebody's gonna find something that's cheaper than, or something that isn't gonna work or something, so. Yes.
So when the commissioners make a decision that they would like to have something changed, typically our process is the engineer prepares a change order with the cost
Right.
difference, and they bring that for official approval.
Okay.
So, is your engineer planning to do that?
As far as I know, everything's gonna
Because
go
it will,
properly.
just because they're saying this is what we want, we
Right.
need still to
I
have the
know.
official paperwork come through.
Okay,
You need documentation on all
right,
that.
right.
So even out on the floor heat then, we expect something to come through
Yeah,
before it's actually
we should be
official?
seeing something from your engineer
yeah.
saying this is the official change order
Right.
to the plans, and this is the cost savings.
So that action was maybe a little premature?
Well, just you deciding what you want
Now, they
is
should come
fine,
back with that
but
document.
we need the actual official change order to come back for
Yes.
final approval
So
too.
we can go ahead and take action on it.
Mhm. As a decision, I just wanna
Prior
make
to the
sure that
documentation
everyone
on it.
agreed. Yeah, but you've got to have the actual change order itself come back through here.
Mhm.
I'd like Joan to speak to it, but you don't do too much without change orders on anything, do you, Joan, on any projects?
No, we usually wait till a change order moves through before you go on. I mean, but you just, it's not that critical normally until it becomes time for that piece to be done.
Yeah.
You keep working around
Yeah,
all of it.
Do the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the floor thing was, the floor heat was the main thing, cause if.
It involves the cement.
Right now, it involves whether you want it or not, the doors, yes, I mean, they gotta get them on order and stuff, but,
They come in at the end of the project.
yes.
They close up the drive-in.
Right. But still, if they have to be ordered, sometimes it's a month or so.
Really, the reason, what you're asking is if that's all right.
Right.
What's your feeling? I mean, one of the reasons why this happened was probably because we got 3 doors on it.
Right.
Yeah, the third door is sort of going
Right.
into the middle of it.
And
causing
if,
problems.
since we're in the overhead tube heat now, that was brought up at the pre-con meeting that you can't have the doors underneath the tubes, opening that way.
Right.
And like I said, the overhead doors and the hanging and stuff, and from what I've told, it's gonna work.
Well, yeah. As long
So-
as it doesn't protrude out
Yeah.
too far.
Yeah, I
underneath the
know what
door
you're saying,
to where
because you're not gonna be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not gonna be able to be halfway through and let the other part hang down.
Otherwise, they'll have to put a spanning support underneath and
Right, right, I understand
It
what
just
you're
causes
saying.
extra cost that way too.
Yeah, we don't want it cobbled up mess.
No, we don't want it cobbled up, we don't want extra costs on somebody else, because then that's,
I don't wanna sell it
That's not
short.
savings,
Somebody's probably
so-
thinking,
I would think that insulated doors would be the best for the long run.
I do too. If we're gonna have it heated, we might as well have the
Yeah,
insulated
you're gonna
doors.
lose too much heat without an
Yeah,
insulated door,
with
as
the
big as those
coil
are.
doors, yeah, yeah.
Well, we need to go ahead and take official action then to go with the new door plan.
I'd make that motion too, to go with the insulated doors, and so the engineer can give us a change order.
Okay, been moved by Randy, and I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'm not opposed. I would just really like to have some more, I mean, it's getting complicated.
Well,
And
we're
honestly,
just
you know,
getting
I
started.
think it could be done a little more organized, actually.
It's just getting started.
Well, but I'm not sure that this is the right start,
Yeah,
so.
but I guess if that's the way the process have to move, we wanna change something, and then the change order will come to us
Yeah.
afterward. Is that normal operating procedure?
What I may do from now on, if something comes up, is just have them send me the paperwork with the savings and stuff or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's the typical process.
Yes.
Usually your engineer comes and brings that stuff to you. You know, they will have the cost information for the different options, and then, you know, to talk through,
Cause I know
and
going
then they
into
do
the
the
next
change
phase,
order.
it may become even more critical.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know the vote. I only have 2 votes so far.
I agreed with it.
Okay, so it's a 3-0.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to see a little different going forward.
Anything else, Bud?
That's good, unless you guys have something that you wanna talk to me about.
sometimes it's just preliminary, cause then they don't wanna go through all the legwork and produce all the numbers if it's not something that you're not even interested in. So sometimes you put that feeler out there to see, would you be willing? Okay, now we'll put numbers together. Otherwise, let's not waste half a day and put numbers together.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for your input, Jonas.
Okay,
That's it, Bud?
that's it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Kent, Brad is on his way, but it's gonna be 11 before he gets here, and he has some things to go over. Is the commission okay with waiting for him, or what would you like to do?
Well, we could probably go ahead, and if there's any citizen concerns, and then after that, we can take a break.
Well, there's something else that, generally the commission also reviews all of the department, like every employee's, evaluation, and we have not carved time out for you all to do that. The department heads have administered those, and the employees and the department heads have signed off, but usually the commission reviews those too. So if you wanted to take a few minutes, that's done in executive session where you could review those. You know, that's another thing that at some point will need to be done, so.
Okay. Anyone have anything for the commission? Okay. Well,
Thank you, Jenna.
I'll help where I can.
we do have a little time, so. Okay, Brad?
Okay, I've got a fairly healthy list and several probably brief executives as well, if we have time for them. First, the Boron sales agreement, which is in your hands.
I like number 5, paragraph 5.
Paragraph 5 is the only change that I've made that I hadn't noted for you last time. Everything else was done in terms of quitclaim deeds, all that sort of thing. Makes life easier for us in terms of warranting anything. And then this is consistent. Tina sent me the minutes, and I had not looked at that close enough. That's my fault. So this puts it in your hands discretionarily. We match the 36 months.
And if they don't get it done, then they come back. Well,
You always have the flexibility to do more if they need more in terms of
Right.
additional time.
Right.
But the whole goal and function here is we're giving it to you, provided that
Yeah.
it's our understanding that you will, there could always be a change to that, and you can go ahead and make that change if you wish later on, in terms of, oh no, we like what you're gonna do with it, and if it isn't on the tax rolls for that reason, whatever that might be, you can approve that at that time, but right now, the presumption is that it will be returned. And that they're accepting it on that basis, so.
So we need to take formal action to accept the sales agreement. Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the sales agreement between Board of Marion County Commission, referred to as the seller, and Marion Advancement Campaign Inc., referred to as the buyer, on Miller's East 45-foot lot 16 First, commonly known as 230 East Main, Marion, Kansas.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 You need to sign one.
And one of those that uses an original.
So then you give everything.
Mhm.
We're gonna notarize that.
Second one, and some of these I'll probably reiterate in a memorandum that I'd already prepared, but it wasn't transferring the way it should have. So, on the quorum, I did get an answer finally, including Jay. He had indicated that he was aware that the resolution did contemplate next November, and he was fine with the quorum at 2 until that was done. Now, I know that's not what you understood from him, but I went back through it with him for quite a while. I want to be sure, since it was an inconsistent kind of a message. And he said, no, I thought I made that clear, but apparently I didn't. That no, as long as that resolution contemplates the effectiveness of that in November, that the 3 representing, as you currently do, remains in place until then. Quorum requirements stay as they are currently until then. At that point, once they're seated, we move to the 5, and then you've got 3. But until then, that's not the case. And given that he was the one that gave you that information, he was my last phone call. I had passed that resolution around to several others and pressed them a little bit more to get an answer, and everyone seemed to consistently say, well, from what this is, I don't see why you wouldn't remain just as you are until November, allowing after the canvass, et cetera. And so since he was the one who had been at that seminar, he said, yes, in the meeting itself, no doubt. What I was telling everyone is once you've done this, now your quorum increases. But he said, in the conversation afterwards, I do recall that, and he said the resolution that was passed, as it was prepared by staff, does keep you, should keep you fine until the time of the election and after.
Well, I hope that what he does is going forward, when he gives his classes, he says this is the way it should be, unless.
Yeah, you've done this in
that-
your resolution.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been the way.
Because I couldn't find any law to support that position, and everything I found indicated that the resolution governed. So I thought, well, I'm missing something.
Other counties that are going to 5 their resolution must have read completely different.
Or
than ours.
were silent as to that. And if they are, you have to presume
Right.
that it's effective at the time that that election occurred, canvass was completed, and you went to 5, which is exactly what we were trying to avoid here, knowing we weren't sure what you wanted to do in terms of a March election in the special or going to November. So.
And even if we'd have had a March election, it wouldn't have been too bad for that short window.
Yeah, but to do it from now until November and make sure that you can all be here each and every time, really, as I told him, I said, wow. I said, if that's really what your stance is, I need to have some law to support that.
Well, and the larger issue too is then, if that's the case and if that's the way they're interpreting it, then there is no representation for
Yeah,
those
I
individuals, which
said,
is a problem.
I don't know
for
how I
that.
could disenfranchise a significant part of the county. I said, explain that to me, and he said, I couldn't. And I said, well, wait a minute. That's how we started the conversation. I said, well, then how does that work? He said, no, you contemplated it. He said, I don't have a problem with the quorum existing the way it is, remaining until the canvass is complete and those new commissioners are seated. So I think hopefully that answers it, so that we have that completed. Third one. I had a phone call on Thursday, from, make sure she goes by Voth, Patricia Voth, at least in her email, but it's actually Blankenship is her last name. She is an attorney with Folston Siefken. She's been retained to assist Expedition with the wind project, and they had stressed to her that she should reach out to the county, and she started with me, obviously, to make sure that there was direct communication, anything that we had questions about, anything that we needed, anything we wanted to have them come and appear for, she let them know, and they will be more than happy to accommodate that and be present, because they want to be sure they have an open line of communication. Her second question, which is the one that I bring to you, which I was kind of presuming, Pat had assisted previously, whether the intent is to go ahead and have him continue to assist on a consulting basis with that as well, on that new project or not, so that she knows if she needs to also reach out to him. Said, you know what, I haven't asked him that question.
We're talking about the South
Yeah.
County.
Yep. Which I now guess is called Expedition Wind.
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, I think, personally, I think Pat has a lot of experience with windmills, and he has retained the county by itself with the one up north,
Yep.
because they also wanted him to do the dual
Yeah,
role, remember?
And I had an issue with that.
Yeah, that's right, and so they done away with that, so he realizes now that he would be solely for us. I just think with his background in it, but
I do
that's my
too.
thought.
Yeah, I do too, to the extent that at least that consulting relationship should be maintained. It's an expertise area, and it's specialized in nature. Basic land transactions, that kind of thing, I don't have any issue reviewing that sort of thing on the county's behalf as part of what I do. But I really do have some issues when they start to get specific about things related to franchise rights and different elements of that as it relates to the county. And that element of negotiation too, because what we come in and ask for in terms of a potential fee, a user kind of a thing, a franchise fee, anything, really I think it's better to have someone who's been involved with that and is current in it.
So, Brad, I have 100 questions on this because of the experience that we had up north.
Yeah.
Okay?
And they're aware that you guys might.
Yeah,
Somehow they were
and
aware of
quite
that.
frankly, because of the experience that we have up north, compared to the mess that we have down south already started,
Mhm.
okay? I mean, it's two different great big monsters,
Mhm.
but the one up north isn't as bad. But anyway, I personally would like to know where as a county we can stand to really get to know a little bit more of what's happening as it's happening. When I went to that meeting with them that day, now I know there was different issues with Rex Savage and the deeds and the titles of land and stuff that should not have
Yeah.
been happened and all that type of stuff. Then of course you have the people who want the windmills and the people who don't want the windmills and all the other type of stuff. And then also that is part of the Clinton Hills area down in there, which of course out east they put a ban on that, which I know we bring down here. But there's a whole host of things going on down there. But my biggest problem that I have is, one of my biggest problems that I have is that Rex Savage sat here in this meeting and said, well, he was selling all of his property interest into this company, Expedition. And I remember asking him, well, does that mean that you don't have anything to do with it? And he said, I'm selling all my interest to them. When I went to that meeting down south, and I sat there at a big round table with all these elderly property owners and things like that, and of course, just like normal, they're all confused, they don't know, because that was the introduction meeting. And Mr. Savage and his wife sat at the same table, and this little couple said to him, well, golly, how will we know this, and how will we do this, and how will we understand this? And he said, well, you'll get your contract, your lease, and you take all the time you need, take a week if you need. And then when you're ready, I'll come to your house, and I carry my notary with me, and we can go ahead and take care of it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I didn't like that at all. First off, that tells me he's still involved. And second off, I think that's kind of borderline inappropriate way to do things, because I know there are laws and stuff against some of that stuff. And I just, I couldn't believe it. So I don't know, I just think we really need to stay on top of that. And how do we get on the forefront to know what's happening before it's too late like
That was
this?
the purpose of her call.
Yeah.
I think she had a pretty good understanding in terms of the lengthy conversation she and I had, that there had been a number of misgivings, and that now that she'd been through it once, it was even more of a challenge, because there were a number of things that arose in this one, some of which got taken care of, some of which didn't really to everyone's satisfaction, and they still keep coming up, that you actually have a greater sense of caution about it probably than you did before, having been through this once. And so she said, yep, that's the kind of the intent of this call, is to make sure that these owners and developers very much want to be sure that they're in touch and have some idea what your questions are and what kind of resolution they can bring to it as quickly as they can bring it. I would suggest it probably is useful first I wanted to be sure about Pat, but also it's probably useful at some point to have a session with them up front. And there, if a lot of those questions exist, to be able to sit down and discuss it, so you have a face-to-face with the people who have hired her, who are actually, I guess, I don't have a good clear picture either, I'll be honest, of who owns what and how yet.
I do know that these wind projects, they do like to have a local face.
Yeah.
Kind of the face of the project, you know, kind of like Dave Mueller was up north.
And they also.
It's a little different scenario.
They retained several other guys to come out and talk to a bunch of property owners who I knew, you know, and so I don't know what these guys are gonna do relative to that style, but I agree. And I think her biggest concern was making sure she reached out immediately at their request to start that communication and open that line. And I told her I'd get back with her. I will, with your permission, tell her we're probably gonna continue to have Pat consult on this, so that if she needs to talk with him, that would be appropriate as well. But also then communicate with her, it might be a good idea to try to develop a meeting of some kind and schedule something up front with the commission, at the very least, you know, it's open to the public, so anyone who's interested and has a stake in it can show up, and at least have that kind of a conversation.
Yeah, because I don't think they've approached planning and zoning at this point.
Not that I know of. I asked her that, and she said, I just got involved within the last 2 weeks, I'm still getting up to speed. But they had stressed that they wanted me to get a hold of the county and find out, you know, what they could do to begin to open that line of dialogue and communication. So that would be my suggestion, and I told her I would let you know at least by today that we'd have that conversation. And if that's something you're receptive to, I'll get back with her and indicate it might be good to get that set up.
I believe that, didn't they do that same thing up north? They went around to each landowner, talked to them right to their house, the company that's up there, so it ain't no different up north than it is down south. But what my concern is we've had a section here, and then now if we've got another, through the years, we've got another couple owners or different owners or whatever that's in this ballgame now, and we're expanding the original area is what we're doing. They're trying to get more contracts to different areas.
Are they expanding it or just moving it farther west? Or is it the original footprint stay intact?
Oh,
I mean, I don't know for sure.
I think they're coming clear down, I know they're coming clear down south to within 2 miles of Peabody.
Right.
And that wasn't originally, I don't know if that was originally there, so I guess, then we have a contract with Rex and that firm, and we've always been under the impression that that's our contract. Well, we got a bigger area now. What is our contract?
Yeah.
What does it cover?
I agree.
And all of these little things that's, over the years, it's been pushed, or do we still go by that, or are we gonna make a brand new one, or just what we're gonna do?
You've got several different documents in there that they're not inconsistent, but they do modify each other. And so I mentioned to her that really first thing would be to get a good template of exactly what it is that's, you know, in place or to be in place, and make sure everyone's on the same page. And she said that probably would be a face-to-face meeting. I said, yeah, it'd probably be a several-hour one, because I suspect you'll have good attendance with other people as well if they're aware of it, and they're going to come in and ask a bunch of questions that go beyond what you may be intending to have if you want that to be a direct dialogue with the commission to start with as the governing entity. But at least that would be a starting point. And then I said you're going to be able to tell fairly quickly that you're probably going to need more of those to deal with people's concerns. So, and I said, I'm just saying that. I know just enough to be dangerous, but it's from what I've heard and seen.
You know, we know there's two sides once you get over towards the Flint Hills area.
Yeah.
And being that's all in Marion County, I guess it's not, there's no moratorium or anything. But you've got people that, you do have people that are, you know, have been strongly opposed.
Yeah.
Well, from the east side anyway.
Nancy Landon, governors, she put a boundary line that boundary line is still good, that you can't cross that. When you said there's no.
Okay, but is that 77 Highway?
I don't know it off the top of my head. Yeah, but there is a boundary line that's not to cross.
Right.
But we also have to think of, as a commission, where do we want our county to be in the future with our landscape and our skyline? And I bring back up, you know, McPherson, and I did get more documentation. I got an actual copy of the article that was in their paper. It is true what I mentioned last week. They did put a moratorium on it. That energy company is not going to go in McPherson County.
Editorially, it makes a heck of a difference in the skyline, because every time I go out there now, I can't get used to those red lights. you know, because I grew up, I mean, it was just, it was just the sky for many years, and we had that tornado go through there, which took out a lot of trees. Now I got a lot of wind, you know, you see them all the way around me.
And you know, it's interesting too, because we're learning, everybody's learning about these wind towers. And before, of course, we're always told, oh, none of this happens, but now there's actually, I understand that the World Health Association has admitted that there are adverse health effects
Yeah, I hadn't heard
associated
of it.
with them.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah, and there's an attorney down in Wichita that's really, well, he defends people who don't want it. And it's interesting, because there's all kinds of stuff coming up, and they actually have a website on Facebook from different people stemming from this McPherson
But in the
thing.
end, it's a private landowner.
Yeah, it's a decision.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, we sat in the meeting, and we had to move up and,
Well,
and
how did
we
McPherson
found out
get
in a
their
hurry.
toy
I
on
don't
it?
know.
See, because
There
it's not
again-
necessarily, it's still, it's our county.
Yeah, it's a new enough issue that, like I said, that's why Pat, you know, is useful in a lot of these, because there's a lot of those questions I'd ask him, myself, from the attorney's perspective, because I really don't know.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a unique thing, but yes, the contracts are all individualized, and, you know, they're, Scully, there's not a acre of theirs that's in it, but, you know, I'm surrounded by it, so, you know.
And you know, it's interesting too, because there is all these other things involved with that, I lost my train of thought. But I know, like what this lawyer was telling me about, like, it would be nice if we could have, you know, knowledge from both sides at that meeting. Because
And
of
that's
all-
why it may well be a work session kind of a thing, where you figure this is a morning, and this is our only function, is to come in here and convene this. You would have it as you could have it as a special meeting, but since we have a quorum present, it's probably just safest. But nevertheless, I would expect you're going to be there a while, because there's going to be a lot of
Yeah,
questions.
because we're gonna have an opposing side as well as a favoring side on this, where we didn't have much of that at all.
Yeah, out there, yeah. And I think that's probably, and some of them are fairly strident in their view. So it may be that where you have it, you're going to need to account for a fair amount of attendance, I suspect.
Right.
But
Might
that
be
answers
something-
my original question about Pat.
I'm sure we won't be able to use the commission room.
I didn't mean to go off on that, but that was one of my things I wanted to talk to you about anyway, was the legalities and stuff into the.
Well, and it is, that's all germane. And at this point, because she made that call, I thought, all right, we probably need to start organizing this from the outset, you know, make sure Pat's aware. And then I'll talk to her in terms of it really might be useful to set up some type of a meeting and coordinate that through the county here and see what we can do and where we can have it. And I'm guessing you're going to get interested citizens who want to be present.
Correct.
So that one, I wanted to be sure I caught up this morning. The deed to Florence, I picked up, it actually, over time, that's an old structure, that legal is really long. But I think I finally got everything that's necessary in order to deed the whole thing and not leave 2 feet of it off. So I've got the deed ready, and I'm going to just double check that against everything, and probably check with security first, and then it's ready to go. And since you've already approved that, I think, you know, at that point, I can either bring it to the next meeting for authorization of signature, or we've kind of already done that, in terms of, you know, authorizing signature, so if you're comfortable, we can just have that signed. Several of these are exactly. Engineer, in terms of, one of the other things that I might suggest after lengthy conversations with several counties who have gone both ways, with in-house, and they said you might want to also consider collectively, once you have the job description, at least as a template you're comfortable with, is using a company like Harvey County, for example, does, several going north from us do as well, where they are contracted to you to attend meetings, to be available for so and so many hours per week. The only reason for it is you get all of the different engineering disciplines if you get the right size firm. And in terms of talking with the association, they said that's another thing for you to consider as well. They did have several names of headhunters that we could utilize for that purpose. But then in the course of that conversation came up and said, might want to think about that also, because you do have those other needs as well that you've already discussed. Yours is primarily really to address, you know, roads, and there's no doubt that you know, you can probably justify it on that basis alone. But if you do want to consider having the ability to tap into structural and some of those other things as well, that's another alternative. And the contract format works really well for some of the counties. I know Harvey County, I went and talked with them again Friday. They're fairly happy with it, as opposed to just the individual engineer. Said it can work both ways, so it's really your call, but I just wanted to raise that as an option, something you might want to mull over and think about.
I like that.
If you did that, wouldn't you need to do an official sort of RFP?
Yes,
process?
I would recommend doing it, largely because the bidding process and looking at what some of them did, and I got a couple of those.
Okay.
They're just all across the board in terms of the bids. And a lot of it comes down to us with the description of what we want, really making it as specific as we can, within the realm of having some flexibility. And then they will come in and you will eliminate some of the smaller firms, because if you want that available to you and you want grant writing available to you, you start to get into the Schwab Eatons.
Well, I think you would look at what qualifications are most important to the board. It would
Exactly.
be qualifications based, not just price based.
Exactly.
For your bid acceptance.
And I would agree with that. And it also needs to, you start looking at, have you done the following kinds of things, because we've had this need in the last 5 years. And get someone who says, yeah, we've got people on staff who are more than 2 years out, who have done this quite a few times in different settings, and that's what I mean by you're getting into the slightly larger organizational settings. It's also, they then will devote someone, because I was kind of concerned about that, well, if we need somebody for Road and Bridge, we need them to be out here and be able to drive these, or have input on a weekly basis with someone in terms of a strategic plan and implementing that on a complete road project comprehensively over so and so many years. They've got to be more than just somebody who pick up the phone and call once in a while.
And that's my concern, because, you know, we've already talked to one engineering group, and they're gonna give us 4 hours a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Like
not
cheap.
how, and that's not how this works. Generally, you're looking at a pretty significant amount of time that they block off and assign to a primary engineer within the organization, and that's their function for part of their week, each week. And that also means that they may be out here some. And so there's a limited number also, from what I understood, in the area that will do it that way, but there are people out there that will. And then they have the ability, oh, well, you need something in a structural setting, or you need a grant to be written, or at least to look and see what's available. And what other, excuse me, kind of sources through commerce or whatever it may be that are available, they keep up with that because they're doing that for a certain number of other similarly situated clients. So, something to consider, and so I wanted to throw that out there as an option.
So in considering that, Brad, and we do have some copies of some preliminary job descriptions from surrounding counties and things like that. So to keep this train moving, do we need to maybe over the next week review those job descriptions and come back with what we want, and then
That
so
would
that
be
we
my
can
view.
get on with it?
Yeah, because I think taking those as a starting point, and getting some sense of what's your wish list, what do you want first, as realistically as we can tell, and developing, and that will probably also modify a bit over time as you're talking about. Well, we realize we need less of this and more of this than we forgot about. But I think one of the ways to do that is to go back over a certain number of years, and Tina can be really helpful with that. What have our demands been? Besides Road and Bridge and other kinds, and we've got a transfer station, those kinds of projects where someone could have plugged in and we need specific forms of expertise, or we've really looked for certain types of, again, getting back to grants or other approaches to how to accomplish what we can do or need to do with the monies that we have. Finding out what all that is and what those projects have been kind of help you get a sense of this is what we'd like to have if we could have a wish list that was complete.
So if we go through these job descriptions and we come up with a consensus of, as a starting point of where we want, then could we go ahead and put that together, then would we seek the headhunting company, or
Either
that would be the next step?
That'd probably be the next step, or, we could develop it depending upon how broad it is with an RFP that we start with.
Well, but if you're hiring, you could potentially develop the job description to hire an in-house person. There is an option that where it's $900, but we could advertise in every newspaper in the state. You can also advertise on the KAC website for a cost. I mean, there's certain ways that you can search that within the state. If you're wanting to go further afield, then, you know.
And they had some suggestions for that as well, in terms of a list of publications and that kind of thing that we could utilize.
And of course, realizing that as we do that, if we do that right there through the state stuff, and I was talking to Maura Bowers, and you know, to have somebody come to Marion County is not going to be too easy. And second, because you only got one job, and if you have a professional family, you got to have a job for the wife, or the husband, whichever one's not the engineer. And in the same token, you got McPherson County now looking for an engineer because theirs went to Salina. So I mean, there's a lot of people actually looking.
There's a lot of competition.
Yeah, so
Right.
I'm almost on the mindset that we need to broaden our search, you know, especially if we want to expedite it, you know, rather than all pulling from the same small pool that's out there. Personally, I'm more in favor of going national or something. I'm just thinking we get a bigger bang for our buck. That's what I would think.
I'd like to know what those headhunters are charging for their service.
And they wouldn't give me an answer on that, so you just have to call each
Because I
one
know
and they'll bid.
it's a pretty lucrative business.
Yeah, it is. And it depends also on, some of these have, individuals who are looking for jobs, you know, or looking to transfer or move, that kind of thing, that have contacted them. And that's common as well in the professional realm. And they have a fee set up with them that we either reimburse or they, you know, pay a certain percentage of their first year's salary to them. So, it varies a lot.
The MCC EDC had a headhunter for their, and I don't think if you don't hire somebody, you don't pay them, right?
Right, in most cases, well, again, depends on your contract. Some of them have a set fee that they charge, and they go at it. I just did one with another municipal entity, and it was pricey. But they do some things that a lot of them don't do, including a guarantee that if the person doesn't work and stay with you for 2 years, they go right back out again at no additional fee to you and find a replacement.
See, now that's
So there's,
interesting.
you kind of pay for what you get in a lot of
Sure.
cases, but the more you get, the more you pay too. So it's not a cheap proposition. But anyway, that's, as a starting point, what I would suggest. And I think our first point would be to take those and try to get an idea of what you want. Let's see what we can put together. That'll make it a little easier to work through the rest of it.
Okay, so you put that on the agenda again for next week?
Yeah, we need to keep that on the agenda.
Okay. And do you want me to try to find any additional job descriptions from other counties? I mean, I just checked with the surrounding counties closest to us.
And that's all I did too.
Can you email them to us or something so we would have them by then, so we'd have time to review them?
Well, if you want me to request them, I will do that, and then as they come in, we'll get them to you, but I don't know how long they don't immediately send them to me all the time. So, you know, some of my surrounding clerks, they'll work to make sure that I get the stuff.
And I
out
think
of
the
way.
ones we have are all R&B engineers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not working for the county and saying, well, if I'm done with, if I have time, I can go help with an engineering
All of the
project.
ones on the surrounding counties are specifically road
Bridge,
engineers.
yeah.
And that I did ask on several of those that are using the contract with for their contract, which is an open record as well. Didn't get any of those before today, but I expect to get several of them from them. We can forward those as well. Get some idea of what's the broad-based nature of their contract. Okay. So that's an executive, so's that. Need an executive session for matters of litigation, and then also a second one for personnel.
Okay. Can I ask you a couple questions before we do that? Because then I don't know, if since we're going to executive session, if anybody wants to hang out or not, but.
I want to ask a question too. And I was going to say that I want to make sure, I think the people that when they're putting up this new windmill farm, they need to tell these people how noisy they are.
How what?
How noisy they are, because, and limit, I would think they should limit how many they can put around a house, because it's extremely loud at my house, because there's like 6, and it's very loud, and, you know, you hear the roar all night long. You can hear it in the house.
It surprises you, doesn't it? Because it was
Yeah.
supposed to be a certain dB level and a certain distance between them, as well as within a population space, meaning you're, like if you've got an individual house in a section. And that's, when I called that up on a computer and listened to, you know, just a representative kind of something at that sound, whatever that dB level was, doesn't sound like much come through speakers. A little different when you're
It's louder
standing
than
here.
our television, we took it, we did the thing with the phone, it's
Yeah.
louder than our television was.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would strongly suggest that those people know, because they didn't tell us how noisy they were gonna be.
And I have contacts with some people that are knowledgeable on a lot of
And
those
there are
ins and
some that
outs.
squeal.
Yeah. But anyway,
Is it, standing outside, is it noisier than the wind?
Oh, yes.
And it's a consistent sound. I
It
didn't
sounds
expect it to
like
be, but
a
it
big
is.
truck coming down the road, all the time.
I think a big problem for private landowners is what kind of questions do I ask?
Yeah, you don't even have
Exactly.
any idea.
We didn't ask.
I know I asked about the noise at that time for several people and got the
They act like
answer
it's nothing.
as to what the regulatory agencies require. But it doesn't, what you envision that being is different than what it is in reality. I will say that.
What, John?
I got two questions on that, just for my own information. On the, is it, all these things, so they're property tax exempt still? I know in 2015 they passed that. So basically the economic development of the county is coming from landowners receiving a check, having more wealth to
Revenue
spend.
passing into the county?
That's right.
But they're now only exempt for 10 years.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
got to be
It's
It's
not
not
lifetime, right.
Yeah, and I know I seen that in 2015, that they changed it to 10 years,
Right.
so. And exit strategy have been asked. If there was ever, and they all went bankrupt or something, is there a exit strategy?
and that's in 2022 when they have to become financially self-supporting because a lot of the federal government money goes away. And that's a lot of big
There was
topics.
a lot of discussion of that.
What's gonna happen? We don't know.
So they don't know who has to remove the equipment if it ever was to,
It's in their
It's-
contract.
it's-
It's
there's
the rest, yes.
It's
They
in their
told us they
contract,
would do
but
it.
you have to beg to get it done.
And there's a lot of what ifs
really?
that go into it, yeah.
So,
But
I mean,
that's
there's-
property, private property owners, we have nothing to do
It's
with
bad.
that.
So they assume that risk on their own.
Yeah.
Because there isn't any, there isn't any court history on any of this
Nope.
stuff yet.
That was one of my biggest concerns, is if you plant that thing in the middle of the section, then I don't know exactly what happens if it doesn't spin anymore. And I cannot tell you that I know the exact answer to that.
Basically come down to, you want to check or not?
Yeah, that's right.
Really,
And
it
you're
is. It's
assuming
all-
that risk.
That's what we found out the last time, it's all about money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is. And this is 40-year contracts up here. The one
Mhm.
they're proposing down there is a 90-year. 90 years. And they're only got, what, a 20-year lifespan at best. I mean, it's,
Well,
I'm not sure.
just questions.
I think
that
there'll
need
be
to
a lot of
asked.
negotiating.
You're talking about questions that need to be asked, and that's my question.
And you know, within 90, even in 40 years, most of these property owners are up in years. Will they be here 40 years down the road?
Right.
And the
Not many.
people who bought the land, or the kids that inherit the land, will they even know where to go? Because the companies
Nobody
sell,
knows. They
sell,
just
sell,
move to
sell. Now who owns it? And most of them are overseas. I
Yeah.
mean, it's,
Yeah,
My house is gonna be extremely hard to sell if we ever decide to sell it,
you'd have to have a windmill lover to buy your house.
I'm telling you.
I thought though,
Hopefully
that
technology
Al told us that when we was arguing,
Put 'em
Ken,
farther away from the
that,
houses.
that the individual person had on each contract something for, because that was one of my questions, for disposal.
Decommissioning.
Decommissioning,
there.
yes, and it's on there.
It's there,
It's
there's
on
a
there.
decommissioning
But
agreement.
it's, but it's nothing that we tried to help them to want to control that, because,
Yeah.
but it got it with each individual.
It's right.
Yeah.
It's negotiated on each
Well,
property.
like I said, when there's no court history on any of those type of matters at this point, I'm sure there will be someday, but who knows when.
It is on their contracts, but here's the problem with that. The property owner has to contact them. They're not gonna contact you, say 40 years is up now, we're gonna come get it.
Yeah.
It's gonna sit there, so you have to know who to contact.
Yeah.
Second thing is, the county had to make all these concessions to haul that heavy stuff in, widen the turn ranges and stuff to get it in. The same thing ultimately is gonna have to happen to get it out of there. What recourse does the property owner have there?
There's also all the small things. How long do they have once the request is made? The way that reads, it's a classic attorney's contract. in terms of there's massive,
That's my line.
you know, there's a big enough hole to drive a truck through
Mhm.
in that thing, and I wasn't happy with it, so I started playing with it, and that was immediately responded to with, oh, no, you don't get to change that language. So, you took it or you left it, just the way it was.
Right.
So I'm not real comfortable with that either, I'll be honest, but that, again, that's an individual statement, not collectively.
I had one more, but it wasn't on the win, and it was, talking about November for the 5-seat commission.
Mhm.
Does that mean that the quorum has to be of 3 through November to the seat in January?
No, quorum until the seating of the 5, the way we did the resolution, stays at 2, okay? So that they can continue to conduct business just the way they have until we seat 5.
Until 5 are seated,
Mhm.
so if they're swearing in is until, I just kept hearing you say November, so I didn't know.
That-
That's
that's-
when the new commission will be sworn in,
Yeah.
is in November.
It's typically January, right?
Yes, it is.
And it will
but
move to that.
in this, it's actually immediately after the election results are certified. That's when the new commissioners
So-
take
Mhm.
office.
Once the canvas is
For a
complete with
short term.
certification.
It's a little more expedited then.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Just
and that's the way
wondering.
we wrote the resolution, and that's why I was running into that brick wall about, well, I don't know, how'd you write it? Well, finally got them to all look at it from the state as well and say, no, you should be covered. So,
Okay.
And so, on another subject matter, may I ask this question? And this is a policy thing, and this just came to my attention, okay, in real life, okay? I mean, I knew it was always there, but it didn't hit me as hard as it just did here this last 2 weeks. And nothing personal. It just happens that it come out on our warrants. The difference between mileage and fuel, okay? So you had 2 commissioners that went to Capitol, up here for training in Topeka, okay? We went the same distance and so on. So I used my county credit card, and I put fuel and filled my tank up, and it was $25.47, okay? For my fuel to go up there. And then another commissioner also went, but he submitted mileage. So he got $139. So what I'm wondering, is there a policy, I mean, because that's quite a money-making deal. If it only costs $25 in fuel, and that took me up and back, and I do have a gas hog, let me tell ya. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, I should get my gas receipt back and get $139, but that would be the wrong thing to do. So what would the policy be? Can we fix that somehow?
we have it in place, don't we, with the IRS current rate?
Well, we pay mileage based on what the IRS rate
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
Generally, if you do have to buy fuel for your county, for your personal vehicle, or you do that, if you put that on your county card, you would reduce that off of the amount of mileage that you would be turning in.
And still turn in the mileage. And the reason the mileage is so much higher when it's over 50 cents a mile, and it has been for years, is because you're not just talking about fuel. When you drive that thing, you've got rubber that wears down, and you've got all kinds of mechanical issues, and I have a BMW, and I can't breathe the air in that place, I'm just a little bitter, for under $1,000.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you start talking about expense on your vehicle, it is more than just gas.
No, and I understand that entirely, but, and I would agree with what you're saying if it was something we did all the time. But when you're talking 1 or 2 or 3 trips a year, and I happen to know that actually for most cars, to get out on highway miles, besides the wear on your tires, but if I only make 3 trips to Topeka and wear out their tires, there's a problem. You know, and I'm looking at taxpayer
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
is really what I'm looking at. So for us to go 1 or 2 or 3 trips on training a year, I don't really see that. I mean, I'm not gonna wear out my belt or anything on that amount of mileage or anything like that, but yet I will if I did this 3 times a year and got $139 each time, I'm just saying, if the dollars just for what we're doing just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me.
Well, I will say that that's the standard. I mean, even as a municipal judge, for example, I'm the president of that association currently, and so when I go Wednesday to hear the state of the judiciary, they will pay mileage. Now, they've made it a policy that they're gonna look at, I don't know, it's MapQuest or which one they use, and they don't care what my exact mileage was. I can turn that in all I want. They just look it up, and that's how they uniform that across the state for any judge that, you know, that's going to the seminar that we have annually, that kind of thing. But they use that IRS quoted rate, because that's to take into account, you know, your vehicle wear and tear and all that. If you want to alter that as a commission and just say, nope, all we're ever gonna get is gas, and I'm donating whatever wear and tear on my vehicle there is for those trips, We can do that. It's just that that is typically not how it is done. It is
Okay.
typically that rate that, and it comes out annually, and that's
And
what
we
we
have
use.
the ability to take a county vehicle also.
Sure.
But it's the same wear and tear.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a matter of whether you're gonna reimburse your own personal vehicle, or you're just gonna take the county's and figure the taxpayers just picked up the tab that way. But they wear out, you know, and I mean, every mile you put on them, so that's the thought.
Well, it just stood out to me, those two, and I wanted to just kind of clarify
It
that.
is significantly
so.
different, you know, if you look at your vehicle and say, wow, I didn't spend that in gas, so I guess I just pocket the difference, well, sort of, but, you know, sooner or
Yeah.
later, you're gonna have to get another vehicle, and they're not cheap, so.
Okay, all right, well, you clarified that, and I didn't know
you
that
have
you
to-
just
you
deduct
have to
that
also-
off.
You have to also remember the amount of miles that we drive in this county in our own vehicles
Oh, I know.
for no reimbursement, and the wear and tear that basically our road is put on.
Back to road and bridge, huh? Okay, we
If you
won't
wanna
go down there.
deviate to that, we won't.
No, we won't. So, one final thing for me, Tina, on the health insurance, which will be coming up before too long, I know it's always in May or whatever, but still, before we wait too long, and I know the subject matter that I had brought up before was maybe self-insuring, and even though we had the lady come and speak to us, she just kind of overbroad gave a presentation, but there's a lot of really key issues to simplify, because quite frankly, even after she left, I was still confused as to how the process worked.
We have two companies. You all agreed to use corporate plan management to do a kind of a bundled bid with some of the other agencies and companies in Marion County. You signed an agreement that we would do that. And then also, I was gonna go ahead and move forward, unless the board has any objections, with providing the same information to Sally, who was here from Gallagher, so that they can present whatever options they have, which would include full coverage, partially self-funded. And then Blue Cross also has the ability to bid individually on a partially self-funded plan. And so I am actually working on putting together all the census information that all these companies are requesting right now. I've been trying to get that together for the last couple of weeks, in addition to doing all the year-end stuff and kind of trying to get caught up. So
Okay, and the other
that's
reason
that's in the works.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know last year we brought it up, and time flees.
It
And
does,
before
and
you
it
know
always.
it's like, oh my God, we only got a month, and we gotta get done. Well, it was just way too much information to really make an intelligent decision. So we got stuck with Blue Cross again. Sorry. Anyway, all right, I'm done. No, I'm not.
Did we wanna talk a little bit about the, county councilor position?
Well, I
Before we
think
go
that
into
he was
executive?
gonna bring that up to you at some point too.
Yeah.
Um,
Probably do these first, and you can do that at the end if you wish.
Okay.
Okay.
First one would be matters of potential litigation, attorney-client privilege.
Okay.
15 minutes.